Hello everyone, Santir here, and welcome to the first Life and Channel update video of 2024, which, given how far it feels like we're already into 2024, feels a little weird to say that, but here we are, because it's January of 2024. Boy, months are long. You ever just step back and think, like, one of the things that I did this month, that was a big thing at the start of the month, is I did a 2023 review, like just retrospective on how my 2023 went, as well as some of the things that I want from 2024. And it's a article on my blog. There'll be a link in the description. But one of the things I should say right now, towards the end of the month, is that I got sick with something. I don't know. Didn't do any sort of tests. Probably should have. Didn't think about it. And regardless, I think I'm mostly over it, but I've still got a bit of too much mucus and a bit of a lingering cough. So I might clear my throat some. I might have a cough. Probably not, because it's not like, who knows. But just heads up, that might happen. More on that later. But one of the things that I do is I have a daily diary entry that I write for my Patreon that I call Dear Patrons. This is one of those little pedantic things. The website's called Patreon, but the people who support you are called patrons. That clarity of terminology is important to me, and it's not a big deal, but it's a little small pet peeve of whenever anybody calls their patrons their Patreons, because it's the Patreon's the website and the patrons are the people who are supporting. Anyway, I write these diary entries up in a text document first, and then I save it in a folder, so that way I have a local copy. It's just a cozier place to write as well. And I titled them something to help me remember what happened. Really useful for reviewing the year. Also useful for reviewing the month. So I just did that before starting this recording, and whew, months are long. Let me tell you. So where do I want to start? I guess start with, I wrote that article. I think it was a quite useful article to have written. There are a number of important observations, but I'm not going to repeat the whole thing because you can go read it. Definitely thinking a lot about sleep schedule things and what are the things that get in the way of sleep schedule. I make my sleep schedule challenged. Because that's just what's most relevantly on my mind at the moment. I wrote about, one of my goals for this coming year is to get better at sleep schedules. I'm going to lean back. And so there's a couple of things that I want to have gotten done for the day before I go to bed. Cleaning my teeth and writing up that Dear Patrons diary entry. It's a little awkward because in my brain, the official title for the thing includes an ellipsis after Dear Patrons, Dear Patrons ... And so you don't want to include another period after that to have 4 dots because it feels really awkward. And so I've been starting calling them Dear Patrons entries, so I can have the word entries there to buffer for the... Anyway, I want to get the entry written up. I want to get my teeth cleaned before I go to bed. But then I still have to do the action of getting into bed. So that way I have a chance to fall asleep. And I've been thinking about, what are things that affect my desire to get into bed. Of course, I need to go through the process of getting ready things done in a good, timely fashion as well. Or they have a tendency to also affect getting to bed. But I've been reflecting on just the last couple days, something that I'm calling schedule fatigue. So this is a very personality-driven thing. Different people are going to feel very differently about these sorts of things. But I'm somebody who there's an emotional and intellectual or mental labor involved in having to attend to a schedule. And by a schedule, I mean things that are scheduled. I have to, think about, okay, what time, what day of the week is it happening? What time of the day is it happening? And so it makes me have to be very temporally conscious. Like I have to be thinking about the time of day, and that's a labor for me to have to do, and it wears me out. Like it causes a sort of fatigue. It is something that is tiring, and so one of the things that happens is I will experience schedule fatigue, where if I have something going on any particular day, that kind of takes a little tick away, right? It's not like any one individual thing adds up that much. It's an accumulation, but getting myself into bed has some relationship with that, right? It has some relationship with that schedule fatigue, and I'm just beginning to see this as a more holistic phenomenon, I guess. It's like one of those things where there's a metaphor that people like to do of blind men feeling an elephant, and each one's describing a part of it. So it's like, oh, this part's like a snake, and this part's like a tree, and etc. Describing its trunk and legs and tail, and so you're describing individual parts of an elephant. And it's only once you get enough pieces together that you can be like, oh, I recognize that is an elephant. If you're just hearing the descriptions, right? It's like, oh, I felt something like a tree trunk, and I felt something like a snake, and I felt, I don't know, however you're describing the elephant's maybe not the best thing in here, but it's the metaphor that's the cliche. So I feel like I've identified enough individual pieces that I'm beginning to be able to recognize the thing as a whole, but I'm still like bringing it into focus, if that makes sense, because this is very, like, I was just thinking about this yesterday, and so I'm still very much so processing it, and like what's its relationship to my getting to bed, and the big thing that I'm needing to identify at this point is what do I do about schedule fatigue in order to be able to recover from it. All right. But anyway, one of the things I've recognized is like having things like across multiple days is more tiring than having more things in one day. Like once you have one thing in a day, adding another thing to the day is a lesser addition. I mean, it's still an addition, but it's a lesser addition than having it on a separate day. Stuff that I'm processing. Anyway, part of what's going on with that is I live with my folks. Can't beat the rent. And I don't, just as an aside, I feel like we have a tendency to try to justify things to other people that we're doing that aren't considered normal, or the culturally accepted way of doing things, or whatever, basically the defaults, right? If you're not doing something that's a default, you have to justify it to other people. And what you're actually doing is you're saying, don't judge me, let me give you the reasons why, so that way you can be convinced that you would make the same decisions I'm making. Something I want to get better about, not feeling like I have to justify myself to people, because that's a lack of confidence in myself, I guess. Like it is preemptively judging myself. So I need to stop trying to justify myself. But that's something that I need to work on. Something a lot of people probably need to work on, realistically. Because also, like, when you're doing it, you're kind of reinforcing the default that maybe actually isn't good or healthy or whatever. Anyway, regardless, I live at home, and my folks like to, during the winter, they've often done this in February, but they did it this month, go out and take a trip somewhere warmer. And during that time, it's me and my sister, and I do the cooking. I enjoy cooking. I enjoy sort of experimenting with ingredients and figuring out what works together. And so I did some fun experiments. There's definitely some things that I found that I enjoy having for food that I tend to gravitate towards. So I had some fun cooking experiments during this time. But what that meant is that's another schedule item, is cooking supper. That gets added. And so I have various young adults groups through churches that I'm a part of. I have magic drafts that I've been going to, which I enjoy, but it's another scheduled activity. It has nothing to do with how much I enjoy it. It's the scheduled part of it contributes. Um, I have church. Again, I really like that, but it's another scheduled activity. And then the days that I wasn't doing those, I had cooking. So I've had for, I don't know, good 3 weeks or something, just very scheduled, and I think the fatigue is really set in on me through that time. So I don't know. Life circumstances will change over time. I'm not sure what things will look like in the future, but I regardless, I think figuring out healthy ways of being able to manage, recover from, I don't know what the right word to use here is, but restore my reserves of schedule energy or something. I need to learn how to do that. So that's something that's kind of more immediately on my mind. Few other random things. I finished playing through Dragon Quest Builders 2. I enjoyed that game quite a bit. I was reflecting, and I don't remember what I talked about in December, because I definitely started playing the game by the time, and like I'm also kind of getting confused with the year-end review article and just randomly thinking about what am I going to say during this, and it's always ad hoc, but that's just how I am. But like if you want my pre-thought out thoughts, that's what articles are for. But I was reflecting on what do I enjoy about Dragon Quest Builder 2 making maps as opposed to doing it in RPG Maker MV. So there's a whole thing about me talking about that in the article, so you can go read that there. But I enjoyed replaying that game. I do need to be getting to more of my backlog. That's a goal that I generally have. I've been kind of bad about it. One of the things that I need to be better at is like playing games instead of watching YouTube. It's the stupidest problem. Let me correct that. It feels like a really stupid problem to have, but nevertheless, it is a problem, and I want to align my actions with my desires better, and that's a tricky one. Speaking of desires or something, I'm realizing that I should write a book, probably about morality. It's the sort of thing where I've been wanting to kind of talk about a variety of topics sort of related to it, but never quite figured out. It's too long for an article, and I write long articles as it is. So I'm kind of reaching the point where I'm like, maybe I just need to write a book. I don't know. No promises or guarantees on any of that, but that's something that I'm thinking about and have been starting to do some planning for. I've also been making progress through my through the game that I'm working on. One of the important things that I'm figuring out, and it feels frustrating, let's go with that I hadn't learned about this earlier, is what I'm going to call like showing your work. So I'm equating this to a mathematical concept, a simple mathematical concept that you would have experienced probably in whatever your earlier years of schooling were. Long division is what I'm going to compare this to, because I think long division is a good point of comparison. So dividing a like 4 or 5 digit number by like a 2-digit number is a bit of a process, right? And maybe you can do it in your head, but it's a lot of stuff to keep track of, and you're going to get results. I don't know. Most likely, depending upon how your brain works, this is very individual, but I know this would be my experience. I'm going to be able to figure out the answer to dividing a like 5-digit number by a 2-digit number far more quickly and accurately if I show my work, right? If I go through the process of writing everything down on a piece of paper, and like doing the division and like writing the multiplication steps that you're doing as part of the division process off on the side. Like if I'm going through and basically showing all of my work, it's going to make me do it faster, and it's going to make me do it better. And there's a sort of design equivalent of that, where that I am beginning to understand or beginning to recognize, where if my tendency has been to try to form the ideas fully in my head, and then write them out or implement them or whatever I'm doing with them, right? So maybe for an article, it's writing it. Maybe for some game element, it's implementing it. Whatever it is, it's taking the thing, forming it in my head, and then putting it out into the world, whatever that looks like. And what I'm realizing is often what happens is that's too much in my head. So I have a really hard time kind of bringing it into shape. And what I need to do is I need to show my work and figure out ways that I can break it into stages that I can do some sort of intermediary step with. Probably write something. So I think I was talking about this last time. I don't remember. But where I would write out a description for a location. So it's I want to make a location, and then I write out a description of what I want that location to look like. And I'm boom. I'm able to work through that process. But if I'm trying to take the idea for it and then just make the map, that's much harder than first writing down the description and then from the description making the place. Because the process of writing down this description forces the ideas to form in a way that I struggle to do if I don't write out the description. So this is kind of a way of commanding my thoughts or ordering my thoughts or taking my ideas and turning them from thinky bits into work-withable thinky bits, if that makes any sense. So I've just been figuring out or trying to develop ways of doing that with more variety of game design elements, I guess, is the best way of saying it. So that's been something that I'm working on and is kind of an ongoing process. And there's always... Scope is really hard to figure out, is all I'm going to say. Because there's a lot that goes into making a game, especially one of my biggest problems, frankly, right now is lore cohesion is a lot of work, and I really like cohesive lore, so I can't not be thinking about these things. But because I'm working with an RPG Maker MV, I also want to use the provided assets because they're there. That's in fact the biggest reason why I'm using RPG Maker MV. So it's this weird tension between I want to basically have lore explanations for everything, and I have a tendency to try to overthink it a little bit. I need to step back and not worry so much about trying to explain every little thing. But it's really hard for me because I want to explain every little thing because I really like it when every little thing has a good explanation. So anyway, other notable things, my sister and I, we have a device for recording off of composite cables, I want to say it is. I always want to say it's component because it feels like there's different components to me, but component and composite, I get confused. But it's your traditional, this is what I recorded when we made our Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask videos. We used this device to record the gameplay footage. And theoretically, we want to do Wind Waker someday, but that's not currently being discussed or anything. I think we would enjoy it, but we don't have a great... Various things have changed, and we don't have a great setup for it. We didn't even have a good setup to begin with, but we have less of a good setup now. Anyway, so that's not on the radar at all. I'm just mentioning that's the device that we use to record it. But we got it to digitize VHS tapes that we have. So we did that with our 1990 VHS copies of the Star Wars original trilogy, the ones before the special edition edits. And let me tell you, there's a little bit of tape degradation going on there, so I'm glad we got to them now and not in another 5 years. But it was really special watching those again in VHS quality because, yes, the quality is potatoes. It is not good quality by modern standards, but it is what I grew up with. I mean, a little bit better, in the sense that the tapes were in better condition and hadn't been aged. But you know, that VHS quality just really spoke to the nostalgia within me, and it really did something. And those are fun movies. I really enjoyed watching them again. It'd been some time, and that's kind of yeah. It'd been some time, and the last several times we'd watched them, it was our like DVD copies of the special editions. Which I mean, I don't hate on the special editions as much as most people. I really, really, really don't like the Jabba scene that they added in A New Hope, and otherwise, I mostly don't care that much. But let me tell you, the VHS quality just really spoke to the nostalgia in my bones. Anyway, had fun watching those again. I have a few more. I have been doing some streaming, as you might have seen. The VOD's been going up. I know, or I'm fairly confident of what causes the random drop frames and stream drops and stuff, but I'll need to figure out a more holistic. The problem is basically that my wired cable connection to the router that is an old cable, and I think it's given out, and so I've been on a wireless connection, and I think that just sometimes gets overwhelmed and drops. I think that's what's going on, but I need to go through the process of like figuring out what the response to that's going to be, because it doesn't just affect me; it affects the family because it going through hallways and other things. Anyway, so I'd like to get that fixed, and like one of my goals is to stream at least a few times a month, a couple times a month. I don't know. I think that's kind of most of what I want to talk about. I did get spontaneously, I saw it, this little X-Wing Lego set. This thing's really cool. Because you can close the foils there, the S foils. So you can get your closed, or you can move them into attack position. So it's hard to do one-handed, let me tell you, because I'm holding the microphone with the other. Which is why things got a little too spread over there. But this thing is really cool, and I really enjoyed building it. And man, it makes me want to get into my Legos again. So much. Okay, I think that's most of what I have to say. It's been overall a fairly good month, I'd say. I'm just looking down at my Dear Patrons folder so I can look at the notes. I did get sick partway through the month, and that wasn't great, and I really boy, I think I'm mostly over it, but I got kind of wiped out, a little tired there for a few days, and had so many things going on. I enjoyed a Ravnica remastered draft, just talking about Magic the Gathering for a moment. And there's going to be another one this week, and I'm very excited about that. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the Murders at Karlov Manor pre-release and starting to draft that, because that set seems sweet. I like multicolored sets, and it's got multicolored stuff. It's got morph stuff. It's got a variant on Manifest as well. I mean, it's not morph, it's disguise, but it's a updated morph, right? It's morph for power creep. Things have changed since Onslaught, is all I'm saying there. I really liked Manifest 2, so it's cool to see a version of like that idea is being incorporated with Cloak. There's some neat split cards. I always like a neat split card. And I enjoy the investigating shenanigans. It just looks like a really fun set from the previews that I've seen. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And so that has me excited. I'm looking forward to Guild Wars 2, the next part of the Secrets of the Obscure stuff dropping, and especially to the additional weapons. I'm looking forward to actually playing with those. I didn't during their little preview thing, because it was like you had to do some specific stuff for that, and I just didn't want to bother. So yeah, lots of stuff I'm looking forward to this coming month. But I think that's most of what I'd want to say. I don't know. Like I said, been a good month. Um, and so until next time, take care, everyone. Bye.